Hello everyone, welcome to this video tutorial. In this tutorial, we are going to discuss how can we create indicator filters around unbalanced volume and this indicator. Uh, you may already watch the video in the trend filter playlist. So we discussed how we can create the trend filters around unbalanced volume. We also discussed this particular indicator. We should pay more attention on its trend instead of individual units unbalanced volume value. So because the value of this indicator makes much less uh, is less significant than the overall trend. Um, However, because we still provide some lots of functions with this indicator, so I think some of the functions could be very valuable, could be useful if we can create indicator filters around this indicator. So it also can create a lot of useful conditions and we can use it in the market scan. Before we go into the application, let's go back to the documentation page and let's review some of the functions that mentioned here. So if we go into this section, the close, open, high, low, OBV, so as you can see, all of these indicators share the same functions. So if you already watched the close, open, high, low, and volume, close, open, high, low, the price indicators, as you should be familiar with those functions. Let's just go through some of them. This functions actually returns the value of this indicator. So if you use the closing, open, high, low, like this kind of price as the indicator, so this function returns the open, close, closing, close, closing price, open price, this kind of value. But if you're using the OBV, obviously it will return the OBV's value. If you use it as the RSD when you create a condition, so that function will return RSD, which is our relative strength DOSI and relative strength Mansfield indicator. So depends which indicator you used in creating a condition. So those functions returns that particular indicator's value. Okay, so it's that simple. The value is returns the indicator's value. Previous value returns previous unit's indicator's value. Changing price, because we name this function as a changing price, but it's not necessarily restricted to be price. So it could be a change in value of this indicator between these units and the previous units price value differences. Get changing percentage, that is another way we can look into the difference between this unit's value with the previous unit's value. So when we talk about units, it basically depends on what kind of chart type you're choosing. If you choose a daily chart, that will be the changing percentage between these 2 days. If you use in a weekly chart, that will be this week, the changing price of value. The changing in a percentage between this week's value with previous week's value. All the others are stay the same. Yep. So I will go into the application because this video is focused on the unbalanced volume. So I'm gonna show you guys some of the useful functions you can use to create the indicator filters. So let's go into our application now. Okay, so I have already opened a chart and also opened its OBV indicator. So what I'm going to emphasize again here is the OBV indicator is not, as you can see, those values, it starts from 0 to upper to starts from the lowest value is 0, and we don't have a upper limit for this indicator. Instead of RSI, and if you see the RSI, so we have a value range. So the RSI always moving between 0 to 100, right? So but OBV is different. So as you can see, this OBV chart looks quite similar with the actual line chart of its price, right? So that's why we are saying the individual days value of this OBV indicator maybe make less significant less significant information. We should rather focus on its overall trend. By what I mean trend is, if you open the trend spectrum indicator here, and not only the trend is drawn on the price itself, and also the OBV has its own trend, so we should more interested in the OBV indicator's trend. However, if we go into the analysis and the indicator filter management, I'll show you guys some of the functions there. As usual, when you want to create an indicator filter, we go into analysis, indicator filter management. Once we open up that one, so we can, as you can see, I have already created some of the indicator filters here. Let's just show you a quick example. You right click and add a new filter. So because we already selected OBV, so OBV should appears in this list. So let's create a condition and see what functions OBV provided. Okay, in the left hand side, indicator type, if you want to create a indicator filter around OBV, you should select OBV. You have to specify the chart type you want to log into for this condition. For example, we are going to use a weekly chart. We select week here. And the most important thing is here though is the option list. If you have a quick look here, so that's the list of functions exactly showing in our documentation page. If you want to use some of the function, so you just select that one into this option drop down list. Okay. All right, let's close this one because I have already created some of them. Okay, let's delete this one. Right, so first of all, let's go into the first one, the simplest one, which is this one. So as you can see, this indicator filter by using one condition, so that is the weekly OBV value larger than previous week's OBV value. How we can create this kind of condition? So as you can see in your left hand side, you just select the OBV and select the weekly chart and select the value. So the value will return this week's OBV value, and bigger than or larger than in the right hand side, you select the OBV and the weekly chart is as well, and you select the previous value, which will return this function will return previous week's OBV value. So in this condition, basically just saying give me all the stocks that this week's OBV value is larger than previous week's OBV value. So in terms of the indicators, meaning that means this week's OBV line should move in above last week's, right? So it's a rising line chart appears in the OBV indicator chart. Let's see what we can do from. Let's create a market scan and show you guys the example. What's the results that returned by using this condition in a market scan? If you want to do in a market scan, create a market scan, you have to go into the analysis manual and select the market scan management. So because I already opened up here, so let's just open a existing one. So the first one, that's the one we're just talking about. First of all, we specify the date that will be scanned to the 24th of December 2021, and then you have to select the market you are going to scan, which is our ASX 200 top 200 stocks Australian market or shares. You double click that one, you select to the right hand side of tree. The market scan will scan this market. Okay, so most important thing is you have to specify the correct indicator filter that we just created, which is this one, weekly OBV larger than previous week's OBV value. Okay, once we finish all of those, we can start a market scan. Let's go into our market scan control panel and select the one we're just going to run. The last one here, let's just do it. Click that one. Shows you a summary of your conditions, and click OK. All right, let's come. We got 139 results in the market scan. Let's come back to here and right click and refresh the result tree. Double click on the results. We have to, we bring up all the market scan results, right? Quite a bit of them here, 139, because we start from index 0, so that we have 138, so that's correct. Let's just open one of them here. A2 Milk weekly chart. All right, let's also open its OBV. So as you can see, the OBV is ticking up here, which means this week's OBV is larger than last week's OBV value, right? Maybe you can't not see this quite small change here. Let's see another more obvious example. How about the ABP? Yep. Okay, so as you can see, this one, the OBV line is ticking up. Well, basically that means this week's OBV is obviously bigger than last week's OBV. That is this function. So that is the results of this market scan. Even though by the first glance and you look at this condition, it's quite simple, maybe it's just not that useful, but this does tell you something. Means you find out all the OBV line is ticking up, right? You find all the stocks with the OBV lines ticking up, it's moving up, so that is a good sign normally, where along with the price going up, so that means more buyers come in. So yeah, that's still provides some of the useful information for this simple condition here. Okay, so let's go back to the indicator filter management page. So this condition used two functions. One is the value, another one is the previous value. Let's go in to see another one, which is our that one. So it's sloping up since last 12. So going back to indicator filter, sloping up since last 12. So here is another function we're using here in this indicator filter. If you don't want to click in too many times and specify left hand side indicator and right hand side indicator, you can use actually using this function, the shift send go with our previous market scan. So this one actually using another function, we call it as is sloping up since last 12. So if you use this one and specify is true, because that one starts from is, so this function is actually is true or false type of function, so you have to specify is true and save. So this one actually find all the stocks with their OBV line is sloping up since last 12. So theoretically, it should be returned exactly the same number of stocks that we did in the previous one, 139, because that's basically the same thing. Okay, let's go back to market scans and looking for this market scan. Is OBV sloping up since last 12? Is true. We do another scan here. Looks like we don't have changed anything, so that specify or everything's correctly set up. Okay, let's start another market scan by using a sloping up since last 12 function against OBV. Okay, let's start. So as you can see, it returns exactly 139 values results here. So that's correct because this function also returns the same number of stocks. So let's go and quickly browsing some of the results here. For example, AWC. Okay. So this function saying that OBV is sloping up since last 12. So last 12 is where? Is here, right? So actually the OBV line is sloping up since last 12, right? So this again, this function also provides useful information for you if you use it to tell you all the stocks that OBV line is ticking up. Okay. On the other hand, if you're using another function which is sloping down since last peak, what are we gonna get? Because very intuitive, if you're using another function which is OBV line sloping down since last peak, as you can see, this condition we already created here. If you modify condition and take a look here, the OBV weekly chart, but the function we have to but the functions we are using this time is a different one. The one is sloping down since last peak and it's true. So that means give me all the stocks with their OBV line is moving lower, right? So so that's a totally opposite results from our previous market scan. Let's prove it by to do another market scan using that we are using this function. We go into the market scan management page and we're looking for the different one. Is sloping down since last peak is true. Let's quickly overview that market. Everything's set up correctly. Yes, we don't have to change anything again. Let's just run it. The first one, sloping down since last peak, is true. If you click star and review the condition, so that looks right. Let's see how many we're going to return. So actually we have 51 results. Let's go back to here and refresh the result tree. Double click on the results. So let's open up another one, BHP. So as you can see, the OBV is sticking there, is moving lower, right? So from last peak, quite a small change here, but yes, it does sloping down. Let's have a look at another one. So AMC, OBV is moving down, not very obvious. Let's find a very good example. Maybe a BPT. Let's see what we do here. Again, it's tiny bit pointing down, so that's still correct, but it's not very obvious. Maybe GWA. Yeah, so this one is more obvious, right? OBV actually is sloping down since last peak. This function, as you can see, gives you some of the information of the OBV line's direction. So if you understand this indicator, that means the buying power is weakening, right? So price going down and OBV going down, and that is a weakening sign for the buying power behind this particular security. Okay, so here is another function. Let's go back to indicator filter. Let's take a look at the other one. Right, instead of those direction instead of find out the direction you're moving up and down, you can actually use in another function that could give you more information. if you want to know this, if you want to know the OBV actually changing price in what kind of percentage, so you can use this function. For example, get change in percentage. Let's see this one, how we specify the condition here. Again, OBV, that's what we're going to use for this type of indicator, weekly chart. And this time we used and get change in percentage, right? So what that means is it used the current unit's OBV value minus previous week's previous unit's OBV value, and then divided by previous week's OBV value, we get a percentage. And the multiply 100, we get a percentage value. That is a non-type of a value, so you can use it in your market scan. For this example, it's saying give me your stocks with the OBV change in percentage is less than minus 200. So basically that value means I want to know that OBV is actually moving down, and also I want to know it's moving down a lot. By how much percentage? By 200%, right? If this week is A, for example, so if previous week is A, and I want its value is going to minus, all right? So it's -4, and then that would be more than 100%. So basically, I want to see a sharp moving down for the OBV line. If you specify this one and save the condition, let's see in the market scans. Let's run this one. So I think here it is. Yep. So let's just delete all the results I just did before. This time we're using this function. So to get change in percentage, we want to see the percentage value is less than a big number, a big negative number. So that's -200. Okay. Once we finish that, we can start to run this market scan by using this indicator filter. That's the third one. Okay, let's run it. All right, we got one result here. Because this is a very restricted condition, obviously we will get much less results. Instead of hundreds, we just got one. We're lucky. Sometimes you get nothing. You need to change the value. But let's take a look at this guy. MTS, double click on that. It's moving up in the weekly chart, and also we'll open up the OBV. Okay. Yes, so this is the one. It's sloping down, but moving a lot. So but actually the value behind the scene is achieved to 200%. If you open up this volume indicator, as you can see, this week's volume is quite low compared to previous 2 weeks, and it causing the OBV moving from a big difference. Okay, so that's the other usage of this OBV indicator provided function, right? So that's give you some of the ideas. Let's come back to here. Take a look at that list again. Okay. In this tutorial, in this tutorial I showed you guys value, previous value, change in percentage, and then this 4 is sloping down since last peak, is sloping up since last trough. This 2 function is sloping flat since last peak and is sloping flat since last trough. So those 2 functions are very rare. Basically it wants to get all the OBV lines flat. Either there's not in trained, but it's a very rare situation in terms of LBV, if you understand this indicator. But yes, we do provide these 2 functions here. I'm not saying other functions, all-time high, low, is not quite useful regards to this OBV. So, but those functions that I just showed you in this video tutorial might give you some information. You might feel they could be helpful in some circumstances. So if you have anything in question still, you can always go back to our documentation page to read through those definitions. Yes, but for this OBV indicator, the most useful scenario still be the trend filters. Uh, I will show here is as you can see, we have an indicator trend scanner, particularly for the OBV to see if it's uptrend, downtrend, no trend. OBV indicator itself has the value itself, has less meaning. You really want to see what is the OBV change in the overall period of time. So that's why the trend is very important, right? But we do give you guys some of the useful functions here. If you want to look into detail of this indicator, how this move, what is the movement, what's the percentage change in values, and is the directions up and down. So you can still create the indicator filter on OBV. Okay. So I think that is pretty much everything for this video tutorial. If you have questions, just please leave a comment below, and we'll try our best to answer your questions, get you some of the help. If you want to know how to create the trend filters on top of the OBV, you can go back to our trend filter playlist and looking for that video to take a look there. I think that's pretty much all for this video tutorial. Thanks for your time. Thanks for watching. I see you guys in the next tutorial. Bye for now.